guys? Welcome back. Got a new post for you guys. Created a dashboard using some MLB data. Primarily, this one's going to be a little bit more focused on my team, the Texas Rangers. I'm going to focus on the Major League Baseball American League West Division race just throughout the 2023 season. So basically, what that means for those that aren't familiar with baseball or the sport is you have 160 plus odd games that you'll play throughout a whole season, and the every team is in their own respective division. There's multiple divisions per league, so there's an American League, there's a National League, and then there's divisions within each league. So Texas is in the American League and the West Division, and the other teams that are in the same division with the Texas is the Houston Astros, the Los Angeles Angels, the Oakland Athletics, and the Seattle Mariners. So throughout the season, lots of games to play, and the team with the highest winning percentage, the best record, ends up with the division championship and an automatic bid into the postseason, the playoffs. So I wanted to kind of look a little bit more closely on this division race. It became a very, very close race towards the end of the season. One, Texas was not at all expected to, win the division or even make the playoffs. But I wanted to kind of show, you know, MLB stats in reference to the odds. So, as you know, everything in baseball is counted. Everything has statistics. Everything there's data behind baseball through all aspects of the game. And then there's also odds from the betting world, right? You have a lot of external factors that kind of dictate the odds after an event has occurred, after every single game. So prior to every season, you have you know betting businesses come out with these odds. What are each team's chances or odds to win the World Series, to make the playoffs again, to win the division. So I will be using for today's post data from baseball-reference.com. It's a really, really well maintained website to obtain data and stats for all your favorite baseball teams for various seasons, historical statistics. If those of you all are interested in baseball or love baseball like myself, please check it out. And you can sign up, get exclusive data. But one thing that they have on there is the odds to win the division, odds to make the playoffs, odds to make it to the league championship series, odds to win the pennant, odds to win the World Series, and all these odds change from day to day throughout the season. So I wanted to take a look at those specific odds points and then kind of overlay them along with the performance of the actual team of the Rangers. Every time the Rangers win or lose, that's going to dictate the odds as you get closer to the end of the season. And then, of course, in this particular situation, since we're using um, probability odds of winning the division, what the other teams do throughout the season also dictates that respective teams' odds. So um, I hope that was clear. Just to kind of give you references to you know the landscape of the season. Um, you have five teams trying to win the division, and then there's odds specific to each team um, based on their current performance, prior performance, even the players you have on your team, injuries. All these external factors will dictate and sway odds to a certain direction. Okay, so let's take a look at the Tableau dashboard I put together. Give you the lay of the land. So I've titled this 2023 MLB AL West Division race. I have icons for each team: Houston, LA, Oakland, Seattle, and of course Texas. And then I have all these different views. So I'm going to explain really quick what these views are. Got my credit there to baseballreference.com. All right, I got two views here. They're all kind of showing the same thing, but I did like them equally, and wanted to explain how I put them together. So this is a stacked bar chart of odds for each team. So you can see the biggest stack towards the beginning of the season was Houston in orange. And then you see right here the lighter blue, almost purple, is Seattle. And then you have the dark blue, which is Texas. So automatically, if you're looking at this, you're thinking, wow, when the season started, everybody thought that Houston would, of course, win the division. Um, you know, multi-championship team, a lot of great players. So, makes sense, right? Then as the season progresses, you take into consideration the current performance of the team, the current state of the team, and the odds fluctuate from game to game. I like looking at this because you can immediately see how Texas has started to kind of ramp it up and emerge. And then the odds makers start to take notice, and the odds to win a division for Texas starts to grow and grow. And then notice how, as Texas Rangers odds grows, the contribution decreases for Houston. And this is all directly correlated to how well Texas is doing, if Houston's in a slump, if Houston has any injuries, if Texas is just playing out of their minds, which they were in the beginning of this season. Great to watch. So this kind of shows you contribution of the odds. If I were to put them all in kind of like in a collective sandbox, like who, here's the most that we can allocate for each team, and then where does the allocation go? I also kind of did the same thing on a line chart, just to kind of give you the odds. So notice here that the visual of the lines dictates the run differential. So I added another measure here, which is the run differential for each team. So after every game, a team has how many runs they scored, and then the opposing team is how many runs they scored. So looking at runs scored minus runs scored from the opponent, that's your team differential. So obviously, if you won that game, then your run differential for that game is going to be positive. It's going to be like one or more, right? And if you lost, you're going to have a negative run differential. But now, as you cumulatively um, sum all that up throughout a season, you start to use run differential as a measure of performance, of efficiency for your team, right? So a team that has won a lot of games or has scored a lot of runs is going to start to compile a much more positive run differential. So just notice here, like the Oakland Athletics, not a good team this year. Notice how their run differentials pretty much negative at the beginning of the season, but continues to stay negative and continues to become even more negative, right? Ending up with like a negative 335. And then you have Texas, run differential in the 150s. But notice how each line is sized differently. So what I did there was I actually added the odds for each day as a size measure for the line. Okay? So notice how the odds for the A's nearly just stays close to zero, which is why you see a very thin line. But then notice how the Houston Astros has a very fat line, meaning their odds to win the division was extremely high, right? But then as Texas begins to ramp up their offense, win more games, Texas's weight or size gets bigger, while Houston's gets smaller. Very indicative of what you see here, but more in a line chart. Um, so I like this. Both think this tells the same story, but a very different way. So that's why I wanted to keep that for you guys, so that you guys have a way to check that out. Okay. Bottom. Let's see. Okay. All right. Bottom chart before that. I got two line charts. Same thing. Looking at run differential isolated, and then MLB odds. So this kind of gives me a reference of, you know, the relationship between run differential and the odds for the team to win the division. So, for instance, if I were to look at Texas, which is in blue, the inflection point with Texas and Houston occurred back in here in game 69. And then if I were to go here and look at 69, notice that we see Houston start to drop in their run differential, while Texas remains consistently in the 140s, 150s, and starts to climb as well. So that drop in production from Houston, along with the consistency and a little bit of increase in Texas, um, that led to the noticeable gap that you start to see in odds, right? So this gap right here, and this is the odds. So after this inflection point between Houston, you can see that the odds starts to gain. Texas starts to see their odds to win the division close to the 90s, while Houston is, already in the 15%, at least during, this part of the season. Bottom view, I did want to, kind of highlight this time just production in terms of pitching. Uh, I'm a really big Texas Ranger fan, so I saw a bunch of games this year, and I was able to kind of, you know, not only keep tabs on the production of the team, but also through sports radio, through stories online. Just know that pitching was a really big problem for Texas throughout the season, specifically for middle relief, relief pitchers. But I wanted to kind of, look at pitching as in terms of cohorts. So I have starters here, are the pitchers that normally started the games, and then are my relief pitchers. So these are the pitchers that come in middle of the game, try to hold leads, try to, you know, stand off the opponents to give the offense a chance to come back. And then I also have colored bar charts here for the types of decisions that were given to each relief pitcher. You have a save for those that created a save at the end of the game. Those that actually got a win, meaning that those are the pitchers that maybe came in on a tied game, or they came in on a game where they were already losing and the team came from behind and won, and they were the ones that pitched uh, towards that decision. Holds, really big indicator for middle relief pitchers. You want to hold the lead or hold the tie. Blown win, a blown save, a blown lead, a loss. Null, which is meaning basically, no decision, along with a blank, which is a no decision. Okay, so real quick starters, you have John Gray, Haney, Dale Dunning, Evaldi, Perez, Montgomery, Bradford, Scherzer, DeGrom, and Rodriguez. I have here the number of appearances, so the number of times they've started a game. So you can see that John Gray leads all starters with 29 starts. And then I also have here their average game score. So the game score is a measure that was created by baseballreference.com to give basically it's more of an indicator of, you know, how important the start is, how beneficial the pitcher is. So obviously, the higher to get to 100, that's incredible. So right here, John's at 52%, 52, average, above average. Dale Dunning 53, 55 for Evaldi, 58 for Montgomery, which makes sense because, Evaldi and Montgomery were, towards the end of the season, you know, really the main kind of drivers of production from our starting pitching. So I like that game score measure that Baseball Reference provides. Scherzer and DeGrom at 60. This is kind of an anomaly. Obviously DeGrom's an ace, but he only had 6 starts, got injured for the rest of the season. So it makes sense that he'd be in the 60s. Scherzer as well, 60s. So these are real top pitchers here. But, Scherzer, we got through a transaction towards the end of the season, but got hurt as well. So not really much production. So the ones I'm really like to look at are these right here, the real without Scherzer, DeGrom. These are our main kind of folks here that have mainly drove the needle in terms of starting pitching. All right, relief pitchers: Will Smith, Leclerc, Burke, Spores, Hernandez, Chapman, Anderson, Stratton, Reagans, Kennedy. So a lot of folks, right? You're going to go through a lot of pitching. It's not like baseball in the 90s where your starting pitcher, you know, held down 7, 8 innings out of a game and then you have your closer come in. Um, it's very rare you see a lot of complete games now in baseball. Now that you have real specialty type pitchers, you have the closers, you have starting pitching. If you get a starting pitcher to bring in about maybe 6, 7, 5, 6 innings, 7, that's great. It's great production from your starting pitcher. You want to maintain management of their pitch count, whereas in the 90s and 80s, they're pitching well into the hundreds. Many are pro this, many are con this, but you have very you have a lot of specialists when it comes to pitching. You have your starting pitchers, your middle relief. You have pitchers that eat up innings. You have pitchers that are there just for your 8th inning to do a lot of holds, and then you have your closers. So a lot of specialists when it comes to middle relief pitchers. Um, these bottom views I wanted to kind of show you. I like this. This is looking at ERA and inherited opponent scores. There's a really big telling measure that Baseball Reference provides, and that's inherited runners and inherited scores. So what does that mean? Okay, when a starting pitcher leaves the game, it's very likely that they're going to leave a game because maybe they're getting tired or they're starting to struggle or the opponent's offense has now started to kind of adjust for the pitching and starting to get some production out of this pitcher. When you're seeing a pitcher three, almost 4 times, a good team's going to adjust. So when that occurs, the pitching team wants to get their mineral reliefs warmed up and bring in a new pitcher, a fresh arm, something different, right? It's chess, not checkers. So a lot of times you're going to have runners on the bases already when you're bringing in a pitcher. When a middle relief pitcher comes in and there's runners in there already, that's called an inherited runner. So you're inheriting that situation, that runner at first or that runner at second, or sometimes bases loaded, right? If that runner scores, that scored run gets counted to the starting pitcher because he's the one that put them on base, right? But that's a really good measure because you want to look at how efficient our middle relief pitchers are in managing those inherited runners. Um, if you have 3 runners on base, bases loaded, and the middle relief pitcher comes in and nobody scores, that's a great outing. That's a great appearance for that inning because you were able to keep those runners on base and not acquire any runs, right? So, with that said, I took a look at the ERA of the team. So this is look at the earned run average, which changes from a cumulative perspective every game. But notice how the beginning when you have one game, the ERA is 7, meaning that the earned run average for the opponent was 7. But then throughout the season, it's going to change. So on average, the team had a 3.9 ERA. That's a good ERA. When you're having a bunch of games, a bunch of different pitchers, that's pretty good. And if your team can, on average, score more than 4 runs, you're gonna win a lot of games. So I have the ERA here plotted out as a line chart. But then notice how you have all these different kind of dots. I size those up with the inherit IS measure, which is basically inherited scores. So give you a reference here. This big circle. Notice how it says on the tooltip IS of 3. So the cumulative ERA as of that day on August 27 was 4.1. But that day we lost, and we had about 3 runs that were inherited scores. So that just tells me that we, you know, had a collapse in middle relief pitching, unable to kind of hold those runners. And that could be a large contribution to why the team lost that day. So I have these sizings here by IS. So obviously small circles or non-existent circles means that there were, no inherited scores. But then as you see, a large concentration of inherited scores are occurring right here. Probably kind of like around, you see that August 12th time frame all the way to almost September 12th. So almost a month of just some really large problems. And I would say problems with our middle relief pitchers, problems with our bullpen, and holding leads, holding runners, inherited runners on the base. So this is telling me that this is a large problem. So if I were to go to that same time area, August 12th, let's see, which probably is around right here. August 12th. I need to know what game this is. So really quick, I'm going to go here back to the view really quick. I'm going to add, let me see, can I add the game number? Yeah. So I just added game number in Tooltip. So notice here on August 12th, ooh, game 585. I don't, hold on, why does it do that? Oh, because I did a sum. All right, okay. Almost there. Average. Yeah, okay. Quick average. All right, August 12th. That's around game 117 when we started having issues. So 117 all the way to 144. It's a lot of games. So if I go to 117 here, notice 70% chance to win in the division. And if I go to game 144, 18% chance. So such a big drop off, right? From a 70% chance of winning the division to an 18% chance. So that's a slump. That was a bad month for the Rangers. Our middle relief, our bullpen couldn't hold runners, and it led to a lot of blown leads, a lot of lost games, um, and a lot of consecutive losses. So that was bad. Um, so this is a true insight here as we see the drop in odds, and then Houston making its way to win the division. Now, I also took the IS here and I plotted it here, right? I wanted to take a look at IS, but I also sized it by count of pitchers. So let me just go back to that same time frame. So if we go to 812, let's look at 818. Inherited scores IS of 3, but look at the pitchers. 6 pitchers were used that game. So that tells me lots of things, right? That tells me that the team was, from a pitching perspective, was having problems. The opponent's teams was scoring, providing a lot of offensive production. A lot of our pitchers weren't grinding down and, you know, holding responsibility of what they had on the mound. So the more pitching you're using, um, you're probably not getting the production you need. On average, now in the game, you're going to have a starting pitcher. You're going to have maybe a 8, 9, 10, 8, 8 7, 8, 9 pitcher, right? You have a pitcher go all the way to the 6th or 7th inning. You have someone that goes into the 8th to hold like a specialist for the inning, and then you have your closer coming, right? So maybe on average, 3 pitchers, right? But as soon as you start getting in the volume of 5, 6, 7 pitchers, look at this one, 6 pitchers. That's telling me that you're having problems there with the opponent's offense, trying to get them out. So the sizing the mechanism here is the count of pitchers used that game, and then the y-axis tells me the inherited scores. So if I go back here to inherited score of 3, but notice how the size is now 8, because 8 pitchers were used that game. That was a bad game. Okay. I like looking at this. This immediately tells me that this time frame here was a problem. And it's very telling of what occurred right here. Same time frame. Okay. I also want to do some quick splits here by month, number of games, winning percentage, average ERA, average inherited runners, average inherited scores. I did an inherited percentage here, which is basically just scores over runners. Run differential average, your average runs against, your average number of pitches, so your pitch count, average strikeouts, average walks, right? So here's a number of games. So let's go back to this time frame, the August to September time frame. So notice here your ERA. I'm not going to count March. That was only one game. But look at April, May, June, and July. Within 3.7, 4.0. Very consistent, right? This was the time frame where we saw a lot of production from Texas. Inherited scores, one runner, sometimes less than one scored. So on average, when you're looking at it across all teams, and then your average run differential for 2.5, 2.2 every single game. So that was good. You're consistently stacking wins, stacking runs. Even your from a pitching perspective, pitch counts 130, 140, average strikeouts 8, average walks 2.8, 2.9. This is good because this leads to runners on base. And I bring that up and I say it's good because when you look at those troubled months, August to September, look at the win percentage, right? You start to notice a downward trend compared to the previous months. ERA is now up 4.3. Your average inherited runner is up too. Look at that, 1.3, 2.5. And then you have your highest average inherited score of 0.9, almost 1 run. So on average, you're going to have your mid reliefs letting at least 1 run in every game. Highest percentage, inherited percentage, 25.2% of all inherited runners are going to score. And then look at this, your average run differential is now in the negatives. So that's a true tell, right? Is not only are you having problems from your mid relief, from your bullpen, but you're not getting the run support you used to having in the beginning months. And then your pitch count's up, which is just a direct correlation to the number of pitchers using. You're going to use more pitchers, have more runners score. You're going to, increase the pitch counts collectively. And then your walks. 3.5, look at that. 3.5 walks per game. The bullpen was really having an issue. The Astros did break away and catch up to the Rangers. They had the same record, but due to a tiebreaker, they came out with a division win for 2023, with the Rangers gladly accepting a postseason bid with the wild card. But like everyone says, the season is just a means to an end. to the playoffs, right? Anything can happen in the playoffs, and that proved to be quite indicative of the Rangers this year because after closely missing the division and winning the wild card and an entrance into the postseason, they came out victorious in the playoffs with a world championship. The very first uh, championship for the franchise. The Texas Rangers had an incredible postseason run. They soon met the Astros again in the postseason, and again they were the underdog, but they came out victorious. They went through the Orioles, they went through the Astros, they went through the Diamondbacks, Tampa Bay. Uh, you know, truly kind of showing that uh, for those folks, whether they're fans, bandwagon fans, media, um, for those that lost hopes, primarily because of that rough stretch in August and September, the Rangers really put it all together and had an incredible run and came out victorious as the 2023 World Champions. I had a really great time putting this all together for you guys. Again, baseball is my favorite sport, so having to work with all this data was, truly just a fun little activity for me to put together. And then it's a team I love, so it was really great to put this all together for you guys. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me via on LinkedIn or on my blog. Feel free to download this workbook and work with the data set on your own. Let me know if there's any ideas you have or any feedback that could make this a little bit more, better in your eyes or more interactive. And let's talk about it. Take care, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.